In the ports of Hong Kong, Inspector Lee is chasing down the elusive crime lord John Tao. Inspector Lee is a highly skilled martial artist and a skilled detective. During an important mission, Lee retrieves several priceless Chinese artifacts that were stolen by the triads, but fails to capture John Tao. Lee goes to notify his close friend Consul Han at a farewell party and meets Thomas, a British diplomat also a friend to Consul Han. He is then forced to explain to Consul Han's daughter and his pupil, Su Young, about her family's move to Los Angeles without him. Meanwhile in Los Angeles, Carter, a brash and fast-talking LAPD detective, goes undercover and is late to a meeting with Clive, a known arms dealer. He then shows Carter some C4 explosives in his trunk. While Carter smooth talks him for more information, two cops show up and suspect something is wrong. Clive takes no chances and grabs Carter as a hostage. Carter tries to defuse the situation, but the cops ignore him, and Clive starts shooting. Clive makes his getaway. Carter shoots the trunk of the car, blowing up the C4. He then catches Clive, telling him he is LAPD. Now in Los Angeles, Su Young and Consul Han are adjusting to their new life halfway across the world. Su Young is taken to school when Consul Han gets a phone call. On the way to school, they take a detour and are shortly stopped by Sang. Sang approaches the car and shoots the drivers. He tries to grab Su Young but is kicked in the face, leaving a nasty mark. As Su Young makes a run for it, she is chased down by Sang's men and is abducted. While Consul Han is preparing for an event, he is approached by FBI Special Agents Russ and Whitney. They inform Consul Han that his daughter has been kidnapped. As the FBI begin to make a plan, Consul Han requests that Inspector Lee come and help. The FBI reluctantly agrees and thinks of a way to make sure Inspector Lee doesn't bother their investigation. Carter is retelling the events of the botched arms deal to his colleagues when the FBI calls the captain and asks if any officer is available for a simple assignment. Fearing he might get suspended, Carter enters the captain's office to defend himself, but to his surprise, the captain offers Carter a chance to work with the FBI, not knowing what the actual assignment is. Believing he got promoted, Carter arrives at Consul Han's home with great confidence and meets the FBI agents and gets his G-14 classified assignment. He realizes the captain is punishing him and gives him a babysitting job. Carter picks up Inspector Lee at the airport and realizes that he can't speak English, making Carter even more frustrated. As he tries to reject it, the captain threatens his job, and Carter is forced to take on this assignment. Carter drives Lee around town. Wanting to be more useful to the case, Carter meets up with an ex-con to hopefully get more information about the missing girl himself. Feeling like he is wasting time, Lee makes a sneaky getaway, and Carter realizes this too late. After a quick chase, Carter catches up to Lee in a taxi, and Lee surprises Carter by speaking English. Carter explains to Lee that the FBI doesn't want Lee to help with the case. Carter takes them to a pool hall trying to get more information. Lee is told to stay behind by Carter because he doesn't want Lee to know the owner is a relative. While Carter gets information, Lee unknowingly insults the bartender and has to defend himself from the angry patrons. Using a pool cue to fend off multiple attackers, he twirls it expertly, knocking down opponents with precision strikes. Lee interrupts Carter's interrogation, and they leave together shortly after. Carter doesn't trust Lee anymore, so he handcuffs him to his car wheel while he gets a burrito. Lee, fed up with Carter's stalling, dismantles the wheel and takes a taxi to Consul Han's home where the FBI are stationed. The FBI mistakes Lee as an enemy and tries to capture him, but the skill gap is too large. The FBI agents are no match for Lee's precise movement and skill in martial arts. In no time, he takes down the FBI agents and reveals to them that he is the Inspector Lee. As he greets Consul Han, Carter shows up late in a tow truck and is reprimanded for failing his assignment. As the FBI agents and Carter argue, Carter intercepts a phone call from Sang. Sang informs Carter of the ransom amount of $50 million, the location and time to drop it off. After tracing the call, the agents Lee and Carter move to capture Sang and get Su Young back without the ransom. A special task force enters the building looking for the kidnappers. Lee warns the FBI agents, but it is too late, and the task force sets off a booby trap and a bomb explodes. Lee and Carter spot Sang in a nearby alleyway and chase after him. Sang climbs up a ladder and enters an abandoned building with Lee and Carter catching up. Sang finds an axe and swings multiple times on Lee. He expertly dodges it, and Sang retreats. While running, Sang trips on a bridge and drops an item in his hand. Lee follows but gets his foot stuck in a hole on the same bridge that prevents him from chasing. Carter doesn't see Lee, and they collide and fall through the hole on the bridge, allowing Sang to escape. They collect the dropped item and meet Carter's LAPD partner Johnson to get info on it. She explains it is a C4 detonator, and with this information, Carter knows who to ask next. Carter and Lee head to prison. After asking a favor from the guard, Carter and Lee meet Clive. Clive doesn't want to help, but Lee brings out a picture of Soo Young. Clive tells them the infamous crime lord Juntao is the one buying all the C4 in Los Angeles, and he is the one responsible for abducting Soo Young. Lee asks where they can find him, and Clive tells them at the Fu Chow restaurant in Chinatown. Carter and Lee stake out the restaurant that night and wait for any signs that Juntao might be there. Carter educates Lee more on his American ways while Lee teaches Carter some crucial martial arts skills. After a bit of dancing and bonding, they spot Sang entering the restaurant. To avoid suspicions, Carter enters the restaurant first while Lee waits outside. This does not surprise Juntao, and he identifies them quickly. As Juntao tells Sang and his men to move Soo Young, it's revealed that Juntao is Thomas, the friend of Consul Han. Carter is sent upstairs to meet Juntao. Lee enters the restaurant and is seated at another table. Noticing that one of the waitresses is wearing Soo Young's necklace, he sneaks his way upstairs. Carter enters the room upstairs and is trapped by Sang and his men. Sang leaves the dirty work to his henchmen and leaves. Lee, wearing a waiter disguise, bursts into the room and helps Carter with the henchmen. Lee engages in a high-energy fight with several armed guards in the room, while Carter handles a couple of them by himself. There is newfound chemistry between Lee and Carter, and the duo takes down the henchmen with great speed. However, Sang's reinforcements arrive with guns, and Lee and Carter are forced to retreat downstairs. As Lee and Carter head to the kitchen, Lee snatches Soo Young's necklace from the waitress. While they make their exit through the back of the kitchen, one of the gunmen shoots the gas stove and causes an explosion, helping Lee and Carter escape.
After they leave the restaurant, Lee and Carter are yelled at by the FBI because they were on the way to the restaurant to pay the ransom, but because of their actions the ransom is now doubled. Consul Han is furious, and he tells Lee to go back to China and relieves Carter of his assignment. Feeling defeated, Lee boards the plane to go back home. Carter, realizing his mistakes and that he cannot do this on his own, finds Lee's plane and convinces him to stay so they can rescue Soo Young themselves. Consul Han hosts an event with Thomas displaying generations of priceless Chinese artifacts, while Special Agents Russ and Whitney are in charge of handling the ransom. Carter, Lee, and Johnson show up, and Carter does what he does best and causes a large commotion to get the civilians out of the event hall. While people are evacuating, Lee notices Thomas speaking to Sang, who's disguised as a bartender. Lee makes the connection between Juntao and Thomas and runs to capture him. Thomas pulls out a C4 detonator to prevent anyone from moving. Thomas gives a monologue while Carter makes his escape out the back and finds Soo Young in the back of a van with a bomb vest around her. Because the bomb vest cannot be removed, Carter crashes the van inside and threatens Thomas and Sang that if they press the trigger they all blow up. Using the distraction, Lee rolls away and grabs Soo Young with Johnson to deactivate the vest. After careful examination, she deactivates the vest, allowing them to take it off of Soo Young. Lee joins to help Carter, and as he fights the enemy off, the henchmen use Lee's respect for Chinese artifacts to their advantage by pushing the priceless objects to the floor. Lee expertly multitasks and fights off the enemy while protecting most of the artifacts. Juntao makes his way to the money room and shoots all the FBI agents, including Agent Russ, and leaves with the ransom money. Carter splits up from Lee and ends up in the money room, where he and Sang come to a final face-off. With a smooth move, Carter shoots Sang and says a quirky farewell before leaving. Lee meets Thomas on the support beams of the roof, and as Thomas shoots at Lee, Lee closes the gap, dodging all the bullets. When Lee catches up to Thomas, Thomas uses his strength to push Lee over the edge. As Thomas beats Lee on the head with the briefcase, it unlocks and is opened, letting all the money fall down. Thomas loses his balance and falls off the edge but hangs onto Lee. As his grip weakens, he falls to his death. With some quick thinking, Carter helps Lee fall safely down with the use of a large curtain. Soo Young and Consul Han thank Lee for his actions and commitment, and Lee gives back Soo Young's necklace. After a couple days, Lee and Carter are flying out to China for vacation. Right before they board, Special Agents Russ and Whitney ask Carter if he wants to be FBI, and with some choice words, Carter rejects their offer and boards the plane with Lee. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.